So, Dungeons & Dragons box office roundup for this week. This is the debut weekend for Dungeons & Dragons. Good, fun, wholesome movie. It's locked up just under $40 million domestic, so $38.5 million. Pretty good, not horrendous, not bad, but is it enough? Well, we're going to break it down, we're going to talk about it. If you're new here and you like these kind of analysis, I do them every single week. They're a good part of the channel, good bit of fun. I enjoy them very, very much. So hit subscribe, give the video a like, and a share. But like I said, this movie is good, it's dumb fun. A lot of people are apprehensive about watching it because the writers came out and stated that they emasculated the men. It's actually not true. The paladin is a badass in this, a true badass. Absolutely true badass. And then the other characters, well, they're true to their character sets, you know. One's a bard and one's a sorcerer. But they're very good at what they do. And they kick ass as well at times. So very odd choices of words from the writers, directors. And has unfortunately put people off. But good word of mouth may see this doing pretty well. So, globally, well, okay, let's dive into it a little bit more. Right. So, it's setting around $38.5 million. Good. That's a good taking. It's not horrendous. It did, however, have a 15% decline from Saturday of $13.1 million. So the 3-day total is $38.5 million. Some of that obviously started over on Thursday previews, then it was released Friday. So that's kind of how they've done it. Now, I said this will be $35-40 million. I was pretty much bang on. Because anyone that has watched this movie generally likes it. There are some detractors for this. Some of my peers don't like this movie. They think it's woke for whatever reason. And they also don't like that there was a cameo of the animated set in here as well. And they think that that was lacking for whatever reason. But this is as it should be. This is an adaptation of individuals playing Dungeons & Dragons. So if you were to play Dungeons & Dragons and you were to envisage that, but in actual form, you know, going from place to place on a quest, that's kind of what this would be. And they do it really well. Now, they obviously thought it was projected to be around $40 million, so it is just below that, but not massively. Global, though, $71.5 million. Pretty decent. Pretty decent overall. Obviously, offshore territories delivered $33 million from 58 markets. It did open to a lot. A lot. Now, there are some comments from Paramount, and this is what's interesting, because they obviously want this to become a franchise. And I think that there's hope here that other studios will want to do tabletop RPGs. And I've said this for a little while, is that, you know, studios want IPs. IPs with built-in lore, stuff that they can mine with relative ease and has an inbuilt fan base. I do still think that this is the future, because comic book movies are on the decline, and there's many different variations of tabletop RPGs, and it can be done. I think this movie has proven it can be done. But does this start a franchise? Well, Dungeons & Dragons outperformed its tracking over the past month, so it's done well, but it didn't gross enough in terms of what they actually wanted. However, in terms of how it's going to go moving forwards and whether it's enough for a franchise fully is realistically just dependent on its longevity in the box office, which I do think is going to be lacking. And the reason why is because Mario comes out on Wednesday, and that's a shame. So, Paramount domestic distribution boss Chris Aronson said to Deadline, with great exit scores and a 71 million global start, the story on Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves isn't going to be finished until well into its run. So this indicates to me that Paramount is looking to push this and keep it in theatres. But they're also confident in the film as well, which is good. Did look like there was some reshoots and some choppy editing here and there, but never mind. I think that they're confident as is. But this is the situation, right? So, Super Mario Brothers is going to be released. The first reactions for that have just come out, and they're resoundingly positive. Massively so. Hugely so. However, Illumination Universal isn't doing any Tuesday sneak peeks. They are just releasing it worldwide on Wednesday, so there's no previews. No previews at all. But everyone's off school. And we're going into an Easter weekend. Long weekend. I think it is Easter anyway. Yeah, we're going into it anyway. And then that'll put people wanting to go to the movies. It's a long weekend. So Super Mario Brothers, its opening weekend will look bigger than norm because it's starting from a Wednesday to a Sunday. Obviously that's not a weekend, but they count this as that. Which is, I don't know, always odd. So Dungeons and Dragons. I think there's the potential that this will do well. I think so. But I still think Mario will knock it off hugely, in fact. Now, deadlines say, look, 2 movies have controlled the marketplace before, and that could be Super Mario Brothers and Dungeons and Dragons. Super Mario Brothers is looking for younger, and Dungeons and Dragons is a little bit more fantasy and older. So there's some positivity there for this. But then you also have to factor in that there's John Wick still in theatres, still doing reasonably well. Reasonably well, anyway. So we have, of course, John Wick Chapter 4 declined more than the anticipated, minus 62%. So it's not, it's down 55 to 60 odd percent. So it's not great, not horrendous, but it's doing okay. I really do hope Dungeons & Dragons does well. I genuinely do. Dungeons & Dragons is a good movie. It's pretty decent. And then we've got some comments from box office analysts here. So the difference in box office can be attributed to format and ticket pricing. Not including early access activity, 74% of consumers have elected to see Dungeons & Dragons as standard auditoriums as opposed to a premium experience, which repped 58% of June. Gross-wise, 22% of Dungeons & Dragons box office came from PLF screens, and 10% came from IMAX screens, and 3% came from other premium formats. So it looks like less people are going to watch this on premium formats for whatever reason. Who knows? It deserves it on a premium format. It was pretty decent, actually. I watched this on IMAX. It was good. It was really, really good. But interestingly, and this is interesting, so it says, while there's a lot of late night play for John Wick Chapter 4 last weekend, Dungeons & Dragons saw the bulk of its foot traffic between 1 PM and 8 PM, that being 67% of admissions. So that does indicate the age range. Not hugely old, not hugely young. Very sort of middle players. But I think one of the other things here about this as well is that there's lots of people that don't want to deal with Wizards of the Coast. The owners of Dungeons & Dragons as a property. They don't want to deal with them. They think they're arseholes, and I get that as well. And again, we have another comment here from a box office analyst, and they say, fans do love the entertaining, fun vibe of the trailer that reminds them of the Mummy and Marvel movies. Many Dungeons & Dragons enthusiasts have noted the relatable nature of the trailer, which they feel more accurately depicts the essence of a typical role-playing session, which goes to what I said. One potential moviegoer said, it's giving me the Mummy vibes, I dig it. Reminds me of Narnia and Harry Potter. It is nothing like that. Some materials have been criticised for its cheesy-ish and stereotypical humour, while critical of how this feels reminiscent of Marvel-style filmmaking, with threads about CGI fatigue. The CGI is bloody good in this. I will say that. Now, is this enough? I think the problem here is it's a long movie. It's on 3,855 theatres domestic. It's a reasonably long film, 2 hours 15 minutes, and you got Super Mario Brothers releasing from Wednesday onwards. Now the issue there is that will take precedence. It's only an hour and a half. There'll be more screenings in a day, but then they'll also take some screens away from Dungeons & Dragons. So can it become a successful franchise? I hope so. I genuinely hope so. I think it's pretty decent. I think it deserves it, actually. But it did have a $150 million production budget. So only taking in, what was it, $71.5 million. I mean, if it has a 60% decline into next week, which I think it's easily able to drop 60%, maybe even more, I think this will struggle to make profit and thus struggle to turn itself into a franchisable format. But one of the saving graces, there's lots of buts in this video, but one of the saving graces is that Paramount Plus has now greenlit a Dungeons & Dragons TV series. So they're clearly going all in on this. They want this to be a success. But we shall see what happens. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm keen to hear. So leave your thoughts down below. Give the video a like and a share. Cheers, guys. Take care.